Hi, Steve. So we're having three questions today. My first question for you is on the tariff.
Ava, can I say something
Oh,
before we go to the
sure.
questions?
Yeah.
I gotta compliment you, Roy, and the entire team. You know, we had Forrest on last week, was amazing, and I did that off of one of your daily news posts up on Getter. Today I had you. There were 10 posts I could have used. I picked the one about the propaganda. You guys are just doing amazing. We need everybody to go to those daily news summaries, which are quite frankly incredible. And I got to tell you, the War Room Posse was so blown away by your presentation. In 4 minutes, you nailed the entire thing. So thank you so much for coming to War Room, and your support's greatly appreciated.
Thank you for your support and kind words. So back to my question. So in the past few days, the U.S.-China trade war has escalated sharply. The U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods are now at 145%. And the CCP has hit back with 125% tariffs on U.S. imports effective today. With China's economy already on the brink, why do you think the CCP is pushing such a suicidal move? And what else besides tariff do you think the U.S. should do to subdue the CCP?
I think they feel that America is going to blink. And I think, look, I haven't gone through this tech situation, but I think they looked at the bond market and they believe there's more outside pressure on President Trump right now from the global capital markets on the trade, although I think it's about our spending. Look, as bad a shape as the CCP's in, and we have tremendous leverage here, we got to use that leverage. One of the pieces of leverage I talked about Thursday night in Beverly Hills is cutting off Iranian oil 100% to the CCP. The 2 million barrels a day that the Persians are shipping are about 20% of the, and if you count the black market, about 20 to 25% of the daily use of the Chinese Communist Party, and it ought to be cut off 100%. But I think the reason when you say their suicidal move, they're engaged in this, and the Chinese Communist Party is not going to back down. They have to be defeated. And and remember, they don't care how many Chinese people they put in misery. They don't care how many Chinese people they kill. They have a track record of doing that, of using the Chinese people as cannon fodder.
Yes.
So the life in China for the working class, in Lao Beijing, they could care less. So this is fully engaged. And what I'm telling people is that there's no simple solution here. This is not about tariffs and it's not about trade. It's about issues far deeper than that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I completely agree with you totally.
All right, Steve, my second question relates to big tech and Facebook. On April 9, Facebook or Meta whistleblower Sarah Wayne Williams testified before Congress that Facebook shut down Miles Guo's account under pressure from the CCP, and then Facebook lied under oath to Congress. And what are the implications of Miles Guo's name being mentioned again in a Senate hearing regarding this issue after 8 years?
I think it's incredibly important. That's what we played on the show. Josh Hawley, the populist senator from Missouri, had really worked through that hearing, and her remarks were explosive. One of the reasons that Meta's going to trial, remember the Federal Trade Commission is taking Meta to trial on a whole host of things that starts Monday, that Zuckerberg has been begging the president to delay. One of the reasons it's not getting delayed, I believe, is the testimony of this whistleblower. And we've had her on War Room before. And her actually making the case for Miles Guo of how he was suppressed immediately because he was speaking truth about the Chinese Communist Party, I think is explosive. And I think once again puts forward at the highest level what a patriot Miles Guo has been in assisting the American people and the entire Judeo-Christian West to understand what the actual threat is of the senior cadre of the Chinese Communist Party.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Steve, we know, Miles Guo has been in the U.S. since 2014, actually, and then started his whistleblower movement in 2017. And since then, he has been the #1 target for the CCP's proxies in the United States. So we firmly believe that Miles Guo's legal cases is the treasure trove, be able to help American and especially the Congress to understand the extensiveness of the CCP's infiltration. So I'm definitely looking forward to all those receipts and hard evidence being demonstrated in congressional hearing like the one that we just witnessed, done by the Senate Judiciary Committee. You have any comments on that in terms of future Congress listening to our story and especially Miles Guo's story?
Well, I think it's not just Congress. I think this was the whole thing about the trial of Miles Guo. It was very limited. And we understand the Justice Department's infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party. Let's be blunt about it. This is why today on the show with Tom Fitton, I called for, to back Tom Fitton, a special prosecutor to be designated by the president to report to the White House directly to the president to investigate the FBI and the Justice Department, because Cash and Pam, they have too much on their plate. You clearly can't investigate it if you're trying to run it, because it's just too complicated. These organizations are too big. And part of it, the investigation has to be the infiltration of the Chinese Communist Party in the FBI and the Justice Department. In Miles Guo's trial, one thing that shocked me was very limited. The testimony about the infiltration was explosive. The media never reported it. Sat right in the courtroom and never reported it, because the media is infiltrated by these people. Of course they are. The China Daily was published was put in the New York Times and the Washington Post for years, put in as a supplement, which is just an Americanized version of the People's Daily, the propaganda arm of the Chinese Communist Party, and they got paid to do it. Of course, they're business partners with the CCP, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, and that's why they didn't cover the Miles Guo trial. The limited amount of information that came out was explosive about how they've hunted down Miles Guo for years and paid people huge amounts of money as bonuses and bribes to basically get him shipped back to China. That was never brought out. And that only scratches the surface. Look what happened to testimony yesterday. All the big tech platforms, because they were in business partners of the Chinese Communist Party, one of their top priorities was to shut down Miles Guo.
Yes.
This is what's so outrageous about this. And this is what, hopefully over the next days and weeks and months ahead, we get in front of the American people. This is one of the reasons we play twice every show his great anthem of taking down the CCP. He's still a hero to the people that are at the forefront of the effort to back Lao Beijing, the Chinese people, because people in the West cannot take down the Chinese Communist Party. We can't. That is a situation. Now, we can fight the Chinese Communist Party. We can assist Lao Beijing, but it's Lao Beijing's hands that have to bring down this murderous regime. And it'll eventually happen. And one of the reasons it'll happen, because you had patriots like Miles Guo that put everything on the line to expose their cruelty, their malfeasance, and just basic evilness. So I'm proud to be part of this. I'm proud to be part of New Federal State, and very proud to work with you two, because you're doing an amazing job.
Amen. So my question is also, shedding light on the role that Miles Guo has been playing, as you alluded to, hero. So a December 2022 intelligence report only recently made public reveals that 7 U.S. service members exhibited COVID-like symptoms after attending the Wuhan World Military Games in October 2019, directly contradicting the Biden administration's 2021 claim, which there was no evidence that any American participants contracted the virus at those games. So how significant is this revelation?
It's huge. It just shows you the bald-faced lie. We now know, look, War Room was taken off all the platforms because we're the first ones to bring up, because of knowledge given the new federal state of China and the relationships we had in China, and especially Miles Guo were able to ascertain immediately in the first week of the pandemic that Wuhan lab was a source of this. And we were deplatformed for telling the truth. All this is going to come out. And it's all tied back to the Wall Street and the tech bros being in business with the Chinese Communist Party and putting their economic interests ahead of the country, ahead of their countrymen, and ahead of the Chinese people. And that's all going to come out in the days and months and weeks ahead.
Yes, I still remember Miles and you were on the yard, and you actually changed the name to War Room Pandemic 3 months before the WHO claimed it to be a pandemic.
On January 15th, when I was there, we were getting ready for the broadcast for Chinese New Year's.
Yes.
When Miles told us, it was Kyle Bass, Bill Gertz, all of us, for our annual 2-day broadcast, 24 hours a day. And Miles informs us, well, we're not going to do the broadcast. I go, we have a technical problem. He goes, no, Chinese New Year's been canceled. And I go, what do you mean it's been canceled? He goes, it's been canceled. And I said, why? He says, because they have a pandemic that's starting in China and it's spreading, and they don't want people to go back to their homes to do it. And I go, Miles, in the 10,000 years of Chinese history, how many times has Chinese New Year's been canceled? He goes, never. That's when I knew. That's when I knew we had a world significant story. Guys, I have to bounce because I have to go jump into another meeting. But love working with you guys. You're at the forefront of this new federal state, and your daily news summaries you're putting up on Getter are just extraordinary. And everybody should read them.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I see you next.
Free miles to go and take down the CCP.
Free miles
Free
go
miles
and take down
go
the
and
CCP.
take down the CCP.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
Bannon,
See you
the
next
co-work.
time.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And so when we're wrapping up, I just wanted to let people know. So the recent intelligence reviewed that from this intelligence report that we just mentioned actually corroborated with an intel that Miles Guo, the founder of the new federal state of China, shared publicly on May 30th, 2021, that in that live broadcast, he reviewed based on intel and evidence that the CCP military had planned to target release the virus in 2019, and their first attempt of release in Guangzhou City failed. The second is exactly at the World Military Games. Now with the Pentagon report reviewed, we now know more truths, but the second attempt is also failed. Unfortunately, their last attempt at the Hainan seafood market was succeeded in unleashing a pandemic that killed tens of millions of Chinese people and over 7 million worldwide. So this is why we're here to hold the CCP accountable for the crimes against humanity. So thank you for watching this special with Stephen K. Bannon, and I will see you, and Roy and I will see you next week.